I have just earned for the first time ever a first place badge in a normal boss event. And this was through taking down 1000% HP Lych with only using 32 tiers in 45 minutes and 39 seconds. And yes, the time does matter. So how did I end up defeating Lych with one less tier than my previous attempt at this boss challenge, all while beating the boss in a faster time as well? You will see that in today's video. And if you guys have been enjoying the content, go to the shop real quick, click career support in the bottom left-hand corner, and put in code M.A.D pops. It's a really easy way to support the channel. Okay, so starting off the development of this strategy, about 2 days before the boss event ended, I saw two names at the top of the leaderboard, Mustard M.A.D and 343 Elite Lych, who defended with 32 tiers spent. And that made me curious how they cut a tier from the previous strategy everyone, including myself, was using, which was this: a Century Champion, Ultra Boost, and Monkeynomics, none of those cross-pathed, which amounts to 18 tiers, and then a 0-1-5 Triple XL Trap and a 1-5-0 M.A.D, which puts you at 32 tiers. Then lastly, spin in that 33rd tier on the Engineer Paragon, which is how you're going to defend the higher tiers of the boss. Okay, so looking at this list of tiers spent, there's 3 separate ways you could potentially cut a tier. Those being not cross-pathing your M.A.D, which loses out on accuracy, not cross-pathing the Triple XL Trap, which means you can't target the trap and manually collect it anymore, or switching out the farming tower for an alternative which is 1 tier less. And from this list of options, I initially thought the most realistic way to cut a tier is by not cross-pathing the M.A.D. And that's because despite the lack of accuracy, the M.A.D still technically deals the same amount of damage per missile, so if you just have optimal targeting, you might be fine. To test the uncrosspath M.A.D, I went out on my modded account and just used the faster forward mod to get to tier 3 really quickly, because this is basically the entire tier that matters for this test. If you can't defend the tier 3 boss with the 050 M.A.D, this strategy is not going to work. And by the way guys, using my modded account for this isn't breaking any types of rules, because this is not a ranked submission. I just did unranked mode for this, and I'm also not going to get flagged because this is on a separate account as well. But back to the defense. First thing you can see here off the start is the M.A.D is missing a ton of the missiles from the ability, which is the whole reason why in the previous strategy you got 150 M.A.D, because even if you're targeting your M.A.D perfectly, the spread from the ability is just too big to hit the missiles consistently. Now you could say, why don't you place your M.A.D in a different location? You have it all the way in the back, so of course it's going to miss more of the shots. That's true, but the reason why you have to place your M.A.D in this location is because the M.A.D has 10 Ultra Boost stacks. And since we're playing against Lych, when Lych gets close to my Dartling, the Dartling will lose the Ultra Boost stacks and deal significantly less damage. So by having the M.A.D all the way in the back, we maximize the amount of time I can keep 10 Ultra Boosts on it. Enough with the rambling though. Is the 050 M.A.D strong enough to defend the tier 3 boss? Well, I did multiple attempts at the tier 3 defend here, and this was the closest attempt I had, which you can see here. But right before we hit that second to last skull, I do get another M.A.D ability off, which is enough to deal with the Lych Souls. The Lych Souls, by the way, are pretty much the hardest part of this challenge, at least for the earlier tiers, because they are buffed by the boss HP multiplier, which means they have 10 times the health. But the Lych Soul is not impacted by the boss speed multiplier, so they're not slowed at all. But either way, we defend that second to last soul, and right after you can see Lych heals, which means it stole the 10 times Ultra Boost from my M.A.D. The boss finally got close enough. So now because of that, my M.A.D is dealing significantly less damage, but we still are dealing damage though, slowly but surely. Enough to hit that final skull while the boss is trying to escape. But the problem is, no matter how many times I attempted to defend that last Lych Soul, I just simply couldn't. And that's even with pairing 1 Ultra Boost stack on my M.A.D for a temporary buff to the ability before Lych heals the Ultra Boost off. So yeah, tier 3 is undefendable with the 050 M.A.D, which means this is not the solution for 32 tiers. Next off, I want to do some sandbox testing with the Triple XL Trap, because you see the biggest disadvantage of not getting the middle crosspath on the trap is your engineer will now hit the balloons before they enter the trap's range, losing you out on a lot of trap income. While if you did have this upgrade bot, you can target the trap and not have your engineer attack anything before they get eaten up, allowing you to maximize your income. So because of that, I did some testing with different Triple XL traps on Spice Islands to see if a certain spot existed where the trap deployment location would be on the edge of the engineer's range. That way the engineer does not steal pops from its own trap. Unfortunately, that location does not exist on this map though, compared to some other maps where you can easily achieve that. So I took the 005 trap option off the list as well, which leaves me to the final option of cutting a tier from my farming tower. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. Now time to hop into the #1 run for this week's boss. And we're gonna start this thing off with a double gun engineer. And the reason behind this is I am going to rush the balloon trap, which might seem a bit weird because these super early rounds don't have that many balloons coming out to begin with. So it's not like the balloon trap's going to be making significant income yet. Despite that fact though, starting with the balloon trap is still the most optimal play because the 4th tier farming tower I will be utilizing is the Monkey City. I was thinking this would be the most effective 4th tier farming option because the other options, such as a BRF or IMF alone, would be decent to help my farming early, but throughout the entirety of a run, it wouldn't make me that much extra cash. While Monkey City, on the other hand, heavily impacts your trap's income with a plus 60% bonus to the trap's income at tier 3 and an extra 20% bonus at tier 4. So that's why I'm starting with the balloon trap, because starting with the Monkey City wouldn't make much sense. It's a kind of expensive upgrade, and the main benefit from the city is if I already have the trap to begin with. But either way, we get the trap up super early, and I target the balloon trap on the outskirt of the engineer's range. That way we can maximize its income. Then slowly but surely we start saving up a bunch of money towards the Monkey City, as that is going to be the next purchase. I'm not even going to get the cleansing foam before the Monkey City, so we're just going to tank the early camo balloons here. Now there's a couple tricks with the balloon trap you can do to maximize the trap's income, the first of which you'll see on round 30 here as I back out and come back in. The reason for this play is it allows you to automatically collect and redeploy your trap at the start of a round. That way I have a completely fresh trap for round 30 and it doesn't overflow mid-round, losing me income. Now here's the thing though, round 34 has a lot of balloons, more than one single trap collect can handle, so I utilize some new trap targeting this round to help maximize my trap income. I start with it targeted a little bit higher up, and then after the first collect, I target my trap lower down. That way less balloons get popped from my main engineer between the trap placements. And right after the second trap collect this round, I do afford my Monkey Town finally. So now we'll be getting plus 60% income. Then shortly after in round 36, I afford the Monkey City as well. So we're getting plus 80% trap income now, and we get the cleansing foam up. Now here's the weird part with the balloon trap. You know how before I was backing out and coming back in to reset my trap between rounds? Well, I'm no longer going to be doing that. And the reason for it is once you have Monkey City on the field, you actually lose income from that play. Let me show you it in action here. Normally from round 28, let's see how much money I make from these lead balloons from a trap collect. We make $447, which puts my total cash at $328,690. This is just a random test scenario made up. But if we back out and come back in, watch this. I'll collect the trap. I made $345 now, and we have less money on hand as well. So what's the reason for the disparity in how much my trap made there? Well, it's because when you back out and come back in, you lose out on the Monkey City buff to the money the trap on the map currently has stored in it. And because of this interaction, I'm going to try to limit the amount of time I retry rounds just to maximize my trap income to the fullest. But now it's time for tier 1 of this boss defend, and this tier will kind of make or break this run in all honesty. The reason for it is we need to afford an M.A.D. to defend the tier 1 boss, as my only other option to defend this tier would be the Sentry Champion, which doesn't have enough damage to deal with those Lich Souls. So yeah, affording an M.A.D., which is quite expensive, will be pretty hard to achieve when I only have a balloon trap and a Monkey City making me income. But here's how we're going to work towards that $65,000 save up. First of all, I got a Rocket Storm in the back because I just need this to defend the Moabs coming out from the normal balloon path. And while I'm defending these, I'm also targeting my Dartling in a way that it's not shooting projectiles towards the front of the track and losing me balloon trap income. That's extremely important. That's one of the main reasons why I have my trap more towards the front of the map, as it allows me to maximize the trap's income more effectively, on top of the fact that if balloons travel a little bit farther, I can still target the trap midway through the map to collect those as well. But either way, through a couple grueling rounds of defending the regular balloons, we have made it to round 49, where I've exceeded $40,000 saved up. And believe it or not, the M.A.D. is not actually going to be my next purchase. I am going to buy XXL trap before the M.A.D., which you can see here already pays dividends as I get a big collect for my XXL trap at the end of round 49. And this brings me to reason 2 why having my balloon trap more towards the front of the map is super important, because I need to end these rounds really quickly. As if I let the rounds drag out too long, I'm not going to make enough XXL trap income in time to afford my M.A.D. before the boss leaves. So by having my XXL trap targeted towards the start of the map, we can keep the rounds short and finally make enough money for my M.A.D. on round 58, while we still have a little bit of track length remaining to defend this boss. Now, despite the fact I have an $80,000 tower to defend the tier 1 boss, it's not actually going to be that easy. I need to make sure I have a M.A.D. ability available for every single Lich Soul, or else we'll die against them. So you can see here for the second Lich Soul, I barely get the M.A.D. ability off at the very end, which kills it, and then the M.A.D. ability lasts long enough to deal with the third to last Lich Soul as well. One other thing you can notice here is I've actually targeted my triple XL trap towards the back at this point because we need to defend the boss before round 60 hits. So stalling the rounds is a priority now. Either way, shortly after we hit that second to last Lich Soul, and once again I barely get that M.A.D ability off before it leaves. Then the M.A.D ability lasts long enough to carry over and deal with the final Lich Soul as well. Then lastly, look at this tech, guys. We're at the very end of round 59. If this round ends, we don't defend the boss in time. So what I end up doing is preemptively collecting my trap before all of the balloons enter the trap. That way a couple of the balloons travel a little bit longer, extending the round's length just long enough for my M.A.D to finish the tier 1 defend. That was crazy. Now tier 1 Lich was all about affording my M.A.D in survival. Tier 2 Lich on the other hand is going to be about speed, as we buy an overclock from my M.A.D and start damaging this guy down. Now the reason why speed of the defend matters, despite the fact it's ranked on least tiers, is because if you tie someone on the leaderboard for tiers, the deciding factor between your scores is how long it took you to defend the boss. And since we already know 2 other people on the leaderboard have completed their runs with a score of 32 tiers, the only way I can get ahead of them is by being faster than them. So that's exactly what I'm keeping in mind here on the tier 2 defend, just using my M.A.D ability and the overclock pretty much every single time off cooldown. The only thing I really need to keep in mind is don't use a M.A.D ability if I don't have overclock present on my Dartling. It's really important to have both of those paired together every single time, or else your M.A.D ability is not going to be as effective. On top of that, you can see me targeting my triple XL trap in the very top left-hand corner of the trap's range, just to make sure none of the M.A.D projectiles snipe those balloons and lose me out on trap income, because saving up for the $650,000 Engineer Paragon without a single banana farm on the map is going to be really difficult. So every single dollar matters immensely here. Either way though, as you can see, tier 2 was much easier than tier 1 despite 525,000 HP. It goes down with relative ease, and our current time is set at 15:52 through 2 tiers, with the time to beat being 48 minutes currently. So we're definitely on pace with a lot of wiggle room, but tier 3, 4, and 5 are going to be a lot more difficult and take more time as well. Either way, the next plan is pretty simple. Just collect every single balloon into the balloon trap. Then mid-round 70, I am able to afford the Ultra Boost, so we're going to start stacking on the M.A.D, as I'll need to have 10 Ultra Boost stacks on my M.A.D before the tier 3 defense starts. And you can see here to help out with that, I am doing some triple XL trap targeting towards the back at the end of rounds, just to increase the round's length a little bit. We don't want to extend the round's length too long though, because then we would hit a time penalty, which would hurt my overall time and make it harder for me to pass the other guys on the leaderboard. I end up getting my 10th Ultra Boost stack on my M.A.D on round 77. So now you're probably thinking, okay, he's probably going to Ultra Boost the triple XL trap or something else next, right? Actually, you're wrong. I'm not going to Ultra Boost anything else, because if I Ultra Boosted my triple XL trap, since Lich just spawns next to the trap to begin with, I'd pretty much lose out on that stack right away, and it would heal Lich, hurting my overall time for the defend. So I'm just going to keep on Ultra Boosting my M.A.D and prepare for tier 3. Alright, here we go with the tier 3 defend. Before we send out the boss, I do get my 3rd and final Engineer in the middle of the map. That's going to be the location of my Engineer Paragon, but I don't actually build it to the 5th tier yet. The reason behind that is if I have the 5th tier Engineer, sometimes the projectiles from the sentries snipe the balloons before they enter the balloon trap, so I'm a bit worried about losing out on that income. And on top of that, the damage the sentry champion deals against Lich is very small to begin with. It's not like it'd make a big difference for how long the tier 3 defend takes altogether. But I still thought it'd be a good idea just to get the 4th tier Engineer, because it will help me out with a couple straggler ceramics that might make it through my triple XL trap. But either way, as far as Dartling targeting and abilities is concerned, off the start there isn't really much to go into it, just using that M.A.D ability every single time off cooldown. But later as the boss travels more and more, I will need to make sure I have the M.A.D ability available to deal with the souls, because the souls are just that strong. Like as you can see here for the 3rd skull, I do get my M.A.D ability in time for that, and we pop the soul with relative ease. One other thing you can see me doing with my M.A.D targeting around 88 is I'm targeting my M.A.D where the missiles are always hitting the boss, but towards the bottom end of the boss. And the reason for that is so the M.A.D projectiles don't hit as many of the balloons before they enter my trap's range. Basically always trying to maximize my boss damage with the second goal of maximizing my triple XL trap income at the same time. Shortly after we do hit the 2nd to last skull, so I use M.A.D ability against that once again, which pops the soul and deals some extra damage against Lich afterwards as well. And now we're nearing that final skull right when Lich is getting close to my M.A.D ready to steal all of my Ultra Boost stacks. So I spam the M.A.D ability, use it right off cooldown, and I do hit the skull before Lich heals off my Ultra Boost, which is great. We deal with the Lich soul, get a little bit of extra damage against Lich afterwards, and then we lose out on our Ultra Boost stacks. But that's fine. Even with an un-Ultra Boosted M.A.D, we still will have enough damage to do this last 300,000 HP or so. And at this point, I am starting to Ultra Boost my triple XL trap now, because Lich is far enough away where it's not going to heal off those stacks. And then in round 95, we finally take down tier 3 Lich. I actually made a play this round as well, where I ultra boosted my M.A.D at the very end and used the M.A.D ability between Lich's heal cycles. That way we could just pop the boss a couple seconds faster, opposed to if I didn't ultra boost my M.A.D there. That's not the entire challenge of round 95 though, because defending the DTs this round can actually be a little bit difficult, even with an ultra boosted triple XL trap. They are just very quick, so you can see here, we are doing a little bit of trap targeting while using the M.A.D ability to help clean up any straggler DTs. And through that, I do end up defending round 95 with maximizing the trap income to a pretty good degree, I'd say. Defending round 96, 97, and 98 with only the triple XL trap wasn't actually as difficult. During these rounds, I was able to sneak in 4 ultra boost stacks on my M.A.D, which is going to be really helpful for the tier 4 defend, because that's where things get real. So here it is, welcome to tier 4, 5.25 million HP. The plan this tier is pretty simple. We just want to make as much money possible from our triple XL trap, then affording the Engineer Paragon and having the Engineer Paragon solo this tier of the boss. The thing is though, as you can see by looking at my money, I'm only at about $440,000, and the Engineer Paragon costs $650,000. Now I can at the end of the day sell my M.A.D and sell my village to help fund the Engineer Paragon, but we still need a decent bit more cash. Either way, in round 100, I target my M.A.D away and just allow the triple XL trap to eat up all of those ZMGs, which does make me a lot of money. Then we have to be a little bit careful in round 101 because there's a lot of balloons that come out off the start, so I'm ready to target my triple XL trap. We eat the Moabs, we target the trap towards the back, eat the ceramics, and eat the rest of the Moabs. Perfect. A little bit more trap targeting around 102. We aren't going to be able to eat every single blimp, obviously, especially with the fact that I can't even ultra boost my triple XL trap at this point, since Lich is directly on top of it. But I'm doing my best job here. Like, you can see a prime example of the trap struggling on round 103 for all of these fortified moves. And this is part of the reason why I needed to ultra boost my M.A.D before this defend, because I need to have the M.A.D as defensive support, which does help me out a lot for those Moabs. We defend them all, but I don't hit any of the ZMGs, which is really important. That way the trap can just eat these up, making me even more cash. With that round defended, we're now at $500,000. So we're currently about $80,000 off of affording our Paragon with selling the other things. But round 104, guys, this round is absolutely insane. And as you can see, our first attempt at it, I just get absolutely demolished. Even with trying to utilize some Century Champion selling to explode the ceramics, we couldn't defend. And that basically was the tale for a while here. Round 104 is just nuts. I tried using different M.A.D targetings, I tried using different ability timings. I was struggling here, guys. And no joke, about an hour into my efforts on this round, I finally had this attempt. Here's how it went. I started off by using some Century Explosions to deal with the initial ceramics, and then we used the M.A.D ability with the triple XL trap target in the back, and using some more Century Explosions, which allowed me to deal with all of the fortified Moabs, only leaving BFBs behind. So with the BFBs remaining, we tried to eat as many as possible inside of our triple XL trap. It wasn't able to defend all of them though, but thankfully by the time they left the trap's range, we got another M.A.D ability off cooldown, which should clean up the rest. And then that leads me to another difficult round, round 105, where I just get destroyed by ceramics. That's the funny part. The tier 4 defense isn't difficult because I'm trying to defend the boss, it's difficult because I'm trying to defend the regular balloons. Eventually though, with enough attempts at this round, we are able to get some really good Century Champion explosions to deal with all of the ceramics. And then I use my triple XL trap to pop a lot of the BFBs down and finish the rest with my M.A.D ability once again. Round 106 is an easy one, it's only DTs, so we defend that too. And round 107 is another pretty easy one, it's only fortified ZMGs, which the triple XL trap can defend those as well. You can see here I actually do start ultra boosting my triple XL trap a little bit. The tactic with this is I wait until there's that little animation from Lich and ultra boost the trap right after, as you have a 12-second window between those Lich animations, which is when Lich steals your buffs. So I can basically have my trap with increased attack speed for 12 seconds to help me defend these rounds. But either way, with round 107 defended, we are getting really close to affording the Master Builder now, and thankfully round 108 is another great round for income, as it's just a bunch of ZMGs once again. So we eat all of those up, and with only one fortified ZMG remaining, I do actually now have enough money for the Master Builder, so we build it up really quickly, and we get degree 40. Now degree 40 is super good because you only need degree 25 to solo the tier 5 boss, but since I got an extra 15 degrees due to the amount of money I earned from the triple XL trap, it's going to help my time a lot through the tier 5 defense, as we'll simply just be able to pop the boss faster. And it was also really good that I could get this up with one fortified ZMG remaining, because it gives me time to place down the Engineer Paragon sentries without risk of dying against the balloons before I can get them down. But either way, now that I have my Paragon finally on the field, we should be able to pop a Lich without too many complications, despite the fact there isn't that much track length remaining. There's a couple things I'm keeping in mind during this defense. One of them is I always want to be placing my sentries pretty much whenever they come off cooldown, and the reason it's important to always replace them is it creates an explosion which does over 100,000 damage against the boss every time a new sentry is placed, because it explodes the old version of the sentry. So that damage creeps up pretty quickly. And on top of that, there's a secret trick with the explosion timing, which I'm not sure if this is a bug or not, but here's how it works. If you time a sentry explosion right before you hit a skull, which as you can see I'm doing here for the second skull, the explosion will damage the boss, but it will also insta-kill the Lich soul. So you're basically getting a 2-for-1 package there. Now this is really OP because if I waited like a second longer to explode that sentry, I wouldn't get any damage against the boss. I'd still be able to kill Lich soul with it, which is helpful. But by getting an activation right before you hit the skull, you can essentially kill 2 birds with 1 stone. However, even with that in mind, I don't think it's necessarily worth to wait a long time to replace your sentries just to make sure you hit that timing window. So I'm not doing that. I'm basically just always placing the sentries right off cooldown, and if I get the correct timing, great. If I don't, then it's not a big deal. Either way, with some more sentry targeting and stuff, we do finally pop that tier 4 boss, with our total time being about 37 minutes 30 seconds, which means that we need to pop the tier 5 boss in about 10 minutes time to get the top 1 spot. Now in the rounds before the tier 5 boss comes out, there wasn't really too much I did in preparation. The only thing really is making sure all 3 of my upgrade sentries are at the front of the map, ready to attack. But yeah, the other Engineer Paragon ability basically has 0 use for me here. One, because you can't use the Engineer Paragon ability on itself, but also if I did use the ability, Lich would just heal from it anyways. Either way, we've now made it to the tier 5 boss. I am starting this off by putting all of my sentries on strong targeting. Then right when the boss comes out, I time my sentry explosion really well to make sure I get a good start on the damage. And the defend has started. 21 million HP. It's basically an elite boss HP that we're facing in normal mode. It's really funny how they switched around the bosses this week. Either way, as we progress here, there's not really much to the defend, I'll be honest. Most of the run has been completed at this point. The only thing I really am doing is making sure my laser sentry is always targeted on the boss, and then secondly, replacing the sentries whenever I get them off cooldown. I'm also making sure to place the upgrade sentries slightly ahead of the boss too. That's really important because if I place them behind the boss, for example, by the time I get that next sentry placement to explode, the explosion would not be able to reach the boss. And inside of a defend like this, making sure every single sentry explosion hits the boss is extremely important. Now with placing the sentries in front of the boss, you don't want to place them too far in front of the boss as well. And the reasoning for that is the little turrets that the Engineer Paragon automatically spawns are based on the locations you're placing your upgraded turrets. So essentially, if I place my upgraded turrets too far in front of the boss, some of the mini turrets are not going to attack, which you can kind of see in action here. Maybe I could have optimized my placements a tiny bit more, but yeah, that's another thing you do need to keep in mind. Either way, we've only got 2 skulls remaining at this point. I am down to 63 lives as well, which could sometimes be a problem because you guys know how strong the Lich souls have been. But thankfully for me, with the Engineer Paragon, Lich souls are not really an issue, especially with the fact I normally just have the timing to use a sentry explosion against Lich souls anyways. And finally, on round 131, this is the final round of defending the boss. We're going to end it off with a last sentry explosion, then waiting for the death animation of the boss. Our final time is set at 45 minutes 39 seconds. So I feel like we popped that pretty quickly. I also make sure to place my new sentry in the very front of the map because if we don't deal with these ZOMGs fast enough, we will get a time penalty. Thankfully for me though, I don't incur a penalty. And there you go guys, as you can see from the leaderboard at the end of the event, even with the number 2 and number 3 people optimizing their placements a little bit by defending the boss faster, we still popped Lich quicker than both of them, securing my first ever top 1 normal boss placement. An interesting part about this is I talked to some of the guys on Discord, and all of the other 32 tier placements actually used a different strategy than me. Instead of using Monkey City, they used the Monkey Nomics, but had an uncrossed path triplex cell trap instead, which I didn't even know would work to defend the boss. But obviously my strategy was still more optimal because I think having the Monkey City and cross-pathing my trap gave me more overall pops on the engineers and money made, which allowed me to get that degree 40 Paragon to end up with a better time than their scores. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. We're well on our way to 100,000 subscribers now. Thank you for the support. I'm Mike out. Peace. Have a good one.